What is going on, everybody? This is the Going Broadway podcast. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us today. My name is Alex. To my immediate left is Cole. Cole, what's happening?
Oh, you know, same old. What's going on?
Not a whole lot on my end either. A blanket good morning to everybody that has already commented. I was telling Cole before we went on, I was like, we're probably going to hit like 100 comments before we even go on. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. We are going to be doing a mystery giveaway today. You'll just have to hang out with us and find out when we're doing it. In the meantime, we got a new little fancy addition to our show here. I'm going to throw it up here right now. So this little ticker down here basically tells you anything and everything that you need to do to be entered into all of our future giveaways.
Ooh.
So, yeah, just like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's all you need to do. And as far as our giveaways, I've mentioned before, I will not be contacting winners going forward. It is your guys' responsibility to check out the show and see if you've won or not. Again, from the time that our live stream ends, you have 24 hours to contact us to see if you've won or not. So, again, just a blanket good morning to everybody. I appreciate you hanging out with us this morning. And let's just jump right in, shall we? We are going to go through some headline stories, whatever you want to call it, here in a second. But it's time to induct our next inductee.
Inductee.
It's time for our next inductee into the Going Broadway Podcast Hall of Fame that you guys have voted on. And I'm just reading a comment. Can you put up closed caption? I'm on mute at hospital with wife. Hope your wife is doing okay. But as far as closed captioning, that's something that you would do on your end, whether it's your computer or your phone. That's not something we can do. So anyway, as far as our next Going Broadway Podcast Hall of Fame inductee, it is none other than the Macho Man, Randy Savage, as voted on.
Oh, yeah!
As voted on by you guys. This was your selection, and a great one at that. And the cool thing about this is that I can play this music because it is public domain, so we're not going to get flagged for this.
That's right. Take that, Facebook.
So anyway, thank you guys for inducting the Macho Man, your selection into this month's Going Broadway Podcast Hall of Fame. And I will be throwing up the next one as far as you guys voting on it and getting your selections and suggestions in. I'll be doing that sometime this week. I don't know if it'll be today or not. However, it'll be going up this week. So, let's see. What do we got here? We got some...
A lot of oh yes.
Oh yeah, brother. Let's go through some headlines, shall we? I saw this morning, and I wanted to bring it up. It looks like we're going to be getting a revamped WWE network coming soon. They basically said that they're going to be tiers for their network, and it never happened, but now it might be. So this was reported on by WrestleVotes. They reported that WWE is expected to announce a new plan for a quote-unquote revamped WWE network shortly. The system will keep with the free tier with a large section of content, but other options are said to be reasonably priced. WWE has thousands of hours worth of content that is yet to see the light of day on the network. So that's the thing that kind of excites me, is that there's so much out there that we haven't seen. Stuff from other companies, WWE's vault in itself. So I'm kind of excited about that, especially if these new tiers are going to be prime content, I guess, from the standpoint of, it's stuff that we haven't seen, pretty much stuff that hasn't seen the light of day. So what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I hope it's worth the money. As you go up in tiers. That's the concern for me, is that Right now, the only reason why I feel like most people get the network is literally for the pay-per-views from the people that I've talked to.
Either pay-per-views or just the historic content aspect of it. I mean, I would venture to guess 95%, if not more, don't get the network to stay up on the current product.
Right. And that's why I was almost cool with them selling it to somebody who can make those current product shows better.
Right.
Because then it might be something worth watching. But yeah, a lot of the people I talk to honestly just have it because they would rather pay, whatever, $15 a month or 10, whatever it is to get the pay-per-view for the month than paying the $49 or $59.99 to watch the pay-per-view. So hopefully they make it fair. Hopefully they get some things a little bit better as far as quality of content that is out there. But overall, I would love to see something cool for wrestling, especially for them.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And the thing is, when I say current content, I'm even talking about these, these ride-alongs and the table for threes and the stuff like that they're doing. Maybe not necessarily the table for three, because a lot of that they talk about historic stuff and whatnot, but even the stuff that they do with ride-alongs and these other little series or whatever you want to call them that they do, that where it's current talent on the product, or it's the current talent it's the talent's on the current product, excuse me. But I mean, realistically, who's paying the $9.99 to watch those things? I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm talking stuff like, I'm even including the Taker documentary series they're doing right now, because that's a retrospect. I mean, yes, he is technically a current talent, but it's a retrospect of his career. Even something like, these specials they've done on AJ Styles and documentaries that are retrospectives of one's career, even if they are a current talent. I'm not grouping that into this conversation. I'm talking about recaps of all the weekly shows. Again, the ride-alongs that they do. Even these what is it? The day of, I think it's what it's called, like where they look at the day of a pay-per-view or something like that. I would venture to guess at most maybe 5% get the network to watch that content and that content alone, and that might be being generous. So
like the other thing is that a lot of those things, a lot of their shows initially have a great idea, but then they don't pan out as the season or as that show kind of progresses. Like, I watched Table for Three, and there was a few that I was like, okay, I really enjoyed this. Like, there was one with, I think it was Adam Cole, Ricochet, and I can't remember who the other one was.
On a Table for Three?
Yeah. And but it was fun to watch because they were talking about Johnny Gargano.
I was going to say it's probably Gargano. It had to have been someone that did like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and was in kind of that.
And I enjoyed it because I got to hear like stories and like they allowed them to expand on their careers outside of WWE, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a little bit of breaking character and stuff. The one thing I would like to see the network get better at or add to is actually having the current product shows the day after they've aired on the network.
100% agreed.
Can't stand that they post the shows like Raw, SmackDown, NXT. That NXT's got the current product usually on there, but they post Raw and SmackDown like a month and a half out. Well, who's gonna go watch that currently? If I'm getting the network to stay current on the product, any other network that has their own app or their own network to showcase their shows usually loads the most current episode a day after it's aired. So I'm not asking you to air it the day of, or live on the network, but the day after. I would think it would be great if they could make sure that those episodes make it on there the day after, so the people who don't have Hulu or any kind of cable can still watch the product for $20-something a month.
Well, and even to add to that, throw on a higher price point and throw it up there live. I mean, I'm sure they could, work something out with the USA Network, work something out with Fox, and say, hey, we'll give you a cut of whatever additional subscribers we might get because we're going to co-broadcast or simulcast is the word I was looking for live with USA Network and Fox to be on the network, and WWE would just say, okay, whatever percentage or X amount of dollars we see as an increase in our subscribers, that's what we're gonna, we're gonna throw USA Network a bone. We're gonna throw Fox a bone. We're gonna say, we'll give you a cut of this if you let us simulcast these shows on the network if we get to that higher price point. Now, I would be shocked if I'd be really shocked if they do that. I'd be surprised if they even got that higher subscriber count / subscriber, get the higher subscriber dollars if they went that route. I don't think that generate enough interest and revenue for them to be able to do that. But again, we're just kind of thinking out loud and speculating on what what these tiers might look like for the network. But someone said earlier the hidden gems part of the WWE network. That's something I like as well, because they don't just go to the old stuff. I mean, it's there, but they some of their hidden gems are from the 90s and 2000s. So it's just kind of that right. Nice little blend of if it's something you've not seen before, or maybe it is something you've seen before but you want to see it again. That's just a nice little piece of the network that
I definitely would love to see more of these documentaries like they're doing on Taker.
100% agree.
The Taker documentary. I haven't watched the newest episode that aired yesterday, but so far watching it, it's been really good. And I think there's a lot of other guys who've had great careers who maybe had a hard time hanging up the boots or wanting to know when that last match might be. So wanting to hear from some of those other guys. I think if you're going to add tiers, again, there needs to be content that's worth paying that extra money for. Now, the other thought that came to my mind is a lot of these TV shows or channels or networks, whatever you want to call them, are starting to head their own direction of getting their own streaming platform or whatever. That's kind of the direction that people are headed in. So if WWE wants to stay current, I feel like they need to kind of get ahead of that curve in a sense.
Right.
And make sure you're putting out content. If it's good, people will watch it. I think that's clear. I think people watch, Being the Elite. People watch the Matt Hardy episodes of Free the Delete and all those things. Like, people are dying to watch content that is wrestling based, regardless of if it's actual wrestling.
Right.
If it's good, they will watch it. So, not that they're gonna buy Dark Side of the Ring, but posting those kind of contents that people actually want to watch, I would say, hey, I would pay money to watch that if it was actually good. Someone that they really missed out on was Zack Ryder. If you listen to Talk is Jericho, they just did an interview with Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. And Zack Ryder was kind of one of the first people to get internet famous in a sense and made it big with their with his camera and his YouTube channel and stuff. And now him and Kurt Hawkins have a really, really successful podcast about collecting wrestling action figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, if they have that huge of a fan base and you had them on your roster, that was a great way to get them TV time. That was a great way to get them over in a sense, is really push their channel. They need to get into a place of allowing these people who have entrepreneur type minds like those two and giving them that platform to share who they are still and in character. And I think it would have been great.
Yeah, there's plenty of room for the network to be able to pick up shows like that, or even do their own. I mean, we've seen that they do their own podcast. The New Day has a podcast. Corey Graves has one. And credit to those two, they're both quite good. I've gotten a chance to check out one or two of both, and they're not bad. And with WWE and their production and their just their value and how they are able to produce something like that. I mean, they've got millions and millions of dollars, so I didn't necessarily expect it from a production standpoint to be bad, but I thought going in, like, okay, it's just going to be like any other podcast, and it's not. I mean, Corey Graves is one especially. There have been a couple of stories that have come out of just those podcasts that have gotten people talking. So anyway, all that to say, it's going to be interesting to see what the network looks like once they do start this tiered plan of you pay X amount of dollars, you get a certain amount of content, you pay more, you get more, and so on and so forth. But I really hope that they keep the historic element of the network on a cheaper price point, because like we've said, you're going to have people that buy the network for the pay-per-views, but then you've got, I would say it's probably a 50-50 split, if I'm being honest. I bet a lot of people buy the network for the pay-per-views, but I bet just as much buy it for the historic content. And I think if you're going to have the historic content at the higher price point, you're going to lose a lot of subscribers. Just my opinion. But and as far as, we've had a few people mention in the comments about how Fox and USA wouldn't let that happen. Probably not. I mean, I'd say it's a 99% chance that wouldn't happen. Again, we're just kind of speculating, and we've said this before, we're podcast hosts, so we try to embellish a little bit, and we'll see. We also found out that Matt Riddle will be going to SmackDown. This is kind of a twofold story. So we found out he's going to SmackDown, and for one thing, I think I think if they just waited 2 or 3 more months for there to be live shows with actual fans, I'm not including, talent on WWE and AEW's rosters, although I do think AEW does it better, but that's another story. I think if they would have waited, this would have gotten a much bigger reaction as far as the internet wrestling community goes. To me, this is just kind of like, okay, cool, whatever. But anyway, Matt Riddle's going to SmackDown. But apparently some thought he wasn't welcome on the main roster because of, past heat that he had with Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg and things like that. But apparently that's not the case. So Ringside News reported that any backstage heat on Matt Riddle is quote unquote over exaggerated. It's been said that Riddle actually plays it up so he can appear as this underdog rebel kind of character or persona. And it works because he continues to get a larger fan base, the longer he's been with WWE. So one source basically said that Riddle ticked off Lesnar, and then Lesnar talked to him about it. Kind of a similar thing happened with Goldberg. While those stories are true, like I just mentioned, it's basically being looked at backstage by a lot of the talent as Riddle actually working the guys or working the boys in kind of a way that, it's real life, but then again, it's kind of like Matt Riddle being Matt Riddle, because it kind of feeds into his personality behind the camera, or off the camera, I should say. So anyway, that being said, Matt Riddle going to SmackDown, I'm okay with it. I would rather have it been waited on or postponed until we have a live crowd. Nonetheless, there was talk that he wasn't going to be welcomed because of his interactions with Goldberg and Lesnar, but apparently that's not the case. So
I think I've mentioned this before. If they really had a problem with Matt Riddle, he wouldn't be on TV. If they really had a problem with Matt Riddle, he wouldn't have a microphone. They wouldn't have kept him. They wouldn't have pushed him. He wouldn't, if they really had a problem with him, you would know it. Okay, that they're not shy from removing people and shutting people down,
especially with these two particular instances that are.
Yeah, and I even read that they actually thanked him for not swinging on Brock Lesnar, as if he wasn't necessarily guilty for standing up for himself or whatever the case may have been. I like the move because I think, there's several guys on NXT right now that I think deserve bigger spots in the card and whatnot, and I think he's one of them.
Right.
So I like the move. I just don't know. I think SmackDown's the better spot for him because they are definitely lacking in top talent, in my opinion.
A little bit.
I feel like they only have like a handful of guys who are really like main carders, and then they have a lot of guys who fall in that mid card, but they don't do anything with their mid card. So it's really hard to be like, yeah, I'm glad he's there because I don't want to see him lost in the mid card. But I read the rumor that his first storyline would probably be with Baron Corbin, and I'm just kind of like, okay, that's good because they'll probably let him get the win because Baron Corbin has taken more L's this year than anybody in the company. Quietly too, like no one's, I don't think, has really realized how many L's that man has taken and still been one of their like top guys to go to for some reason.
Yeah, his 2020 record, I think he's maybe won one match,
a handful at most.
Well, no, I read his record for this year for 2020. He's literally only won one match on TV or a pay-per-view. I don't think that statistic included live events before live events ended for the time being.
So hopefully that's not the. I mean, that's probably the feud that doesn't shock me. It sounds right. I would, if not him, I probably would have said Sheamus just because Sheamus name dropped him like he did Hardy, but it looks like there's more of a feud with him and Hardy to go forward. So I'm kind of like, I'm just kind of torn because I just don't see a lot of storylines there right now for Matt Riddle, and I think he deserves good storylines. I think he's funny.
Agreed.
Think he proved that his promos can be funny and still be taken as a serious wrestler. So hopefully they have more in store for him than just a random Baron Corbin hates the new guy storyline, and then he's got nothing, no other storylines ready to go after that, because that's gonna be a quick one. That's not gonna last very long.
And this is slightly off topic, but just the more we talk about, there not being live events, and because of the pandemic, live events have been on the shelf since March, I think. I mean, literally, I've said this before. I went to AEW Revolution. I was there in person, and then they had an episode of Dynamite the following Wednesday, and then that was it. I mean, it was literally beginning of March. But the reason I bring this up is because I'm really excited about how fun wrestling is going to be once we get live crowds, because no matter if you're watching AEW, WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, NWA, every single crowd is going to be a stinking hot crowd for at least the first few weeks, I would think anyway. I mean, just the thought of that gets me super stoked to, be able to watch be able to watch wrestling with fans, even if it's just, like I said, even if it's just NWA. If you just pop on NWA Power on YouTube, it's going to be a small studio crowd, but it's still going to be a hot crowd. They're going to be so into it, and that's just going to make it more fun as a viewer on TV. And I'm really hoping that Dynamite's been rescheduled for here in the St. Louis area in October. I'm going to be there. I've literally got a front row ringside seat. I'm super stoked about that. I hope they don't postpone it again for whatever reason. But as much as I'm excited to watch it on TV live, it's just going to be insane being there live. So just wanted to say that because, and we've said it before too, any sporting event, once we get fans, it's just going to be, it's going to be like being at let's put it this way. It's going to be like opening day or first day of the season or whatever for any and every sport, because it's like by the time this gets back going again, let's see, March, April, May, June, July, it's going to be at least 5 months since we've had any sporting events with fans. So I'm excited about it. I want to read some of your guys' comments real quick. And by the way, guys, I meant to put this in our little ticker thing at the bottom of our screen. We do try to keep our social media pages as well as this chat stream free of any profanity or just otherwise vulgar language. So let's if you guys could please, let's keep that to less than the minimum, like non-existent. If you guys could please, I'd appreciate it. Let's see. Kevin says, I think Matt Riddle has talent, but I'm not a fan of his gimmick. I don't know. I like it. I mean, I was kind of sour on it at first, but it's kind of grown on me. Jason says Riddle will do great. Let's Kaz says, I miss New Japan so very much. Yeah, I mean, it's New Japan. If you guys don't watch New Japan, you really need to, in my opinion. Jason says they missed bad with Cesaro. Yeah, 100% agreed. I kind of hope they just continue to bury Cesaro so he ends up going to AEW, where I think they'll put him on a better, bigger stage, I should say. At least that's not the right way to phrase it. They'll put him on a higher platform to be more prominent, I guess. And we're also getting some questions in. Again, we mentioned this is going to be an Ask the Host show once we get through our headlines. So send those questions in to us. We'll try to get to those once we get through our headlines. Let's see. Ryan says Cesaro needs a title. Yeah, Michael says the crowd brings that energy to the table. Yeah, 100% agreed. I mean, it's just... I'm going to sound like a broken record, so I've already said what I'm going to say. It's going to be fun. Michael says the indie company I work with is doing a show next weekend with no fans, and I'm just excited to be back to working with them. Yeah, I mean, with indie shows getting back going too, I think that's not a surprise. Indie shows are going to get going first, and then I think slowly but surely you're going to have Ring of Honor and NWA following suit because they have bigger crowds than indie shows, but smaller than, WWE, AEW, etc. And then eventually, I would suspect by no later than the end of summer, we're going to have, New Japan, AEW, WWE having shows with some fans. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be the social distancing thing. I'm not saying you're not going to have to sit 6 feet from somebody else, but some fans are better than no fans, and I think some fans are better than talent fans that AEW and WWE has been using. Let's see. Travis says when they do get fans back, they need to utilize the roster better than before all this stuff happened and cut back on the promos, as they are running together each week with the same stuff and people who cannot cut promos. I haven't had a problem necessarily with how, really AEW or WWE has been, with their promos. I can understand why they've been doing it. I do expect that they'll cut back on those. Once we get live crowds, I do expect that they'll have more in-ring, more of an in-ring presentation. All right, guys, I'll tell you what. Let's go to our. We kind of talked about this already. This is going to be the last of the headlines I was going to mention, and we kind of touched on this. So. It looks like WWE is playing into Jeff Hardy's personal issues with alcoholism and things like that. They're trying to play that into a storyline. I just wanted to bring this up because I think this is bad form on WWE, in my opinion, that they're trying to play off a real life issue that Jeff Hardy has. And you guys can say that he's beat it all you want, but this is, I don't even know if I can count how many times on one hand this has happened, whether it's been with WWE, whether it's been with TNA / Impact. I don't like it. I'm all for him having a program with Sheamus. I'm all for him, not, being in this Intercontinental title tournament, but do it in such a way that you're not bringing in a real life storyline or a real life issue into a storyline that, it's alcoholism is not something to joke about. And I'm not saying they're joking about it. Maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but WWE creative can come up with a better way, to integrate a storyline with Sheamus and Hardy. I mean, they've kind of planted the seeds for it already, and then it kind of took a back seat, and then they brought it back again. So I'm actually really disappointed with WWE creative in that they are going this route. And a lot of people commenting agree. And William mentioned that they did this with Road Warrior Hawk a number of years ago. I didn't agree with it then. I thought it was awful then. So, what are your thoughts?
So obviously, I feel like Jeff is aware and okay with it because I just don't see him going through with a storyline that would be uncomfortable for him. But here's the thing. I don't think it bothers me as much that they're doing as it is that it's been done already. Like how many wrestlers have brought up Jeff's past in not just in WWE but in Impact. Like, this storyline with Jeff has been done over and over and over again, because I do understand the mindset of getting in front of it. You know what I mean? Like, they had the same problem with Rob Van Dam with his use of marijuana when it was illegal. You know, they wanted to get in front of it, so they would make jokes and stuff on air and cut promos and whatever. So they've done this with Jeff. They've cut promos. They've tried to kind of make sure that they made known of it, so no one could say, oh, well, they're just ignoring it.
Right.
So I get the idea that they're trying to be creative and saying, oh, this is his huge comeback story, and they did the whole 4-part series on him, of him kind of identifying his problems and getting over them. And so I kind of get like why they tried to go that way with it now, because they did the whole redemption story. But it just doesn't.
It's not a redemption story yet.
It just doesn't need to be done, though, because it's been done. Like, it's already been done. I don't. The Sheamus Jeff Hardy storyline does not really interest me, and I'm a huge Jeff Hardy fan. And I think the reason why it doesn't interest me is because there's really no problem. Like, there really isn't a big enough story there for me to be intrigued. Because it's already been done. I would have much rather seen Jeff Hardy been in the Intercontinental title picture, because I am huge on him having his one last run. If this is what he's considering his one last run, bet. Like, I want to see your one last run, whether it's in the mid card, in the main card, whatever. I want to see it. I want to see it done well. And doing a promo or doing a storyline with Sheamus, whether it was this storyline or another one, is just not interesting. It's not fun. It's boring. And I would much rather see him used in a different way going forward. So looks like they're going to continue with this storyline. Hopefully the backlash from the storyline kind of nicks it pretty quick. Maybe at Backlash is the end of it. But we obviously saw that Matt Hardy wrote his little Twitter comment about how excited or happy he was to be working for AEW, and then his wife also commented or made a statement as well. So
I think my biggest hang up on this is the fact that, you know, like you said, we want there to be a redemptive storyline if they're going to go that route, but it's, at least from his personal life standpoint, we don't know if it's a redemptive outcome. Because this is, like I said, I can't even count on one hand the number of times that since Jeff Hardy has been in the wrestling spotlight. I'm not even counting, you know, his first couple years as the Hardy Boys tag team in WWF when they were jobbers. You know, we tend to forget that they were in the WWF for a couple of years before they got pushed into, you know, into the mainstream tag title picture. But since he became a household name, this has probably happened 6 or 7 times, maybe.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm exaggerating, guys. I mean, it happened at least twice for sure, just while he was in TNA/Impact, and he had 2 different stints with them. So maybe 6 times. And it's, you know, if it's one of those things that would have happened one time, it was a big deal. But then give it 6, 7, 8 months, whatever, and then it was apparent that he was free of any kind of alcoholism or free of any kind of addiction, I would totally be okay with it. But it just seems like it's a revolving thing with Jeff Hardy, unfortunately. And I like Jeff Hardy as a talent, as a performer. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to rip on him by any means. It's just, a lot of you guys have said that Jeff Hardy probably gave his okay and his blessing to do the storyline. Probably so. I'm not saying he didn't. I don't know. I just think I think they could have gone another route with this. You know, and someone said Miz deserves a long run. They could have thrown him into this tournament instead of Jeff Hardy if they wanted to have a Jeff Hardy Sheamus feud or storyline or whatever, and they could have done something else, in my opinion.
There's plenty of talents that are not being used or whatever that I just think they could have done something way better if this was Jeff Hardy's redemption story, let him have a redemption story by redeeming himself and getting a belt, or redeeming himself and getting some victories and getting some traction. I didn't. What's funny about the whole thing is that when you play into these real life stories, people believe it. And my wife, who's not a wrestling fan, she does not follow the product, saw that I think CNN reported on this or something like that, and she thought this was real. She thought that he got arrested again for drunk driving, whatever you want to call it. And I was just like, babe, that's a storyline. She's like, no, he got arrested. I was like, you need to go watch SmackDown because that man showed up at the end of the show. And I had to explain it to her. I was like, anything that hits that too close to real, to the point that people start spreading rumors. Now you got people saying, oh, he's in, he got arrested. No, he didn't. It was all storyline. But because when you play into those real life storylines, it can get really, really extra, really, really quick.
Yeah, and the fact that CNN is picking up on that, I mean, WWE is probably thinking, okay, cool, we've done our job. But you mentioned how you'd want Jeff Hardy to have a redemptive story by having him get some wins, having him, win a title or win the Intercontinental belt or something like that. Here's the redemptive story. He needs to get his addictions, done and out of the way and taken care of. Then you can do this storyline if you want to. That's just my hot take on it, if you will. Did you have anything you wanted to mention as far as stories, headlines, whatever? We got time for probably one more.
I will mention this because you and I were both just kind of perplexed by the whole comment. I was reading this morning that apparently that this past year's WrestleMania, that there was a rumor that was confirmed by Darren Young that the original Nexus, was supposed to make its return at this past year's WrestleMania. And I was talking to Alex about it this morning before we went on air, and I was just like, you're trying to tell me that they had Ryback on board, who absolutely despises WWE and trash talks at every chance he can get as far as how they treat their talents. You're telling me that they had PJ Black, who has had way more success as an independent wrestler, agreed to come back and be Justin Gabriel again.
You'd have to have Ring of Honor's blessing because he signed with Ring of Honor.
Right.
So
and then Otunga, I don't think Otunga's even cleared to wrestle.
Probably not. He might have just, best case scenario, if this was true, he might have just been present.
Been the face. You got to have Wade Barrett on board, and he's what signed NWA.
He's with NWA.
As an announcer, I believe.
Yep.
So there's just a lot of these guys who I was like, okay. I know Heath Slater was probably on board, but there's a lot of them that I'm just like, okay, but how did you get all these guys to agree? So I just thought that was interesting because I don't know why Darren Young would say that if there was no truth behind it. But to say the original Nexus was coming back, okay, well, this was the original Nexus. These guys, there was eight of them. So for that to be the original Nexus, you have to have the original guys come back.
You would have had to have Curtis Axel, who they had literally just gotten rid of. I think were the releases? The releases were after WrestleMania, were they not?
Yes.
Okay, so that wouldn't have been a problem because I was about to say that they
because Gallows and Anderson got released after the Boneyard match.
My initial thought was, for whatever reason, I briefly thought it was before WrestleMania, and I thought that might be a problem that might have been a problem if they had just released him, but
that had to have been in the talks already, right? Like they don't go a week later and start releasing people on a whim. They were already in talks about that. That's what I'm saying. You already had Heath Slater, you already had Curtis Axel, you have Daniel Bryan, who was kind of part of Nexus there at the beginning, and David Otunga.
And one thing you haven't mentioned yet, more than likely, if this were true, it would have been part of the Firefly Funhouse match. They probably would have tried to integrate Nexus with, John Cena and going through all of his past personas and all of his, all of the things that maybe he should have done while he was with WWE, should have turned heel. they kind of did a retrospective of John Cena's career during this Firefly Funhouse match. My guess is the Nexus would have been brought in for that. Anywhere else would not have made any sense. Anywhere else on the card, if you look up and down the WrestleMania card, nowhere else would have made any sense whatsoever. Now, that being said, I think that who did you say made this allegation?
So Darren Young was the one that actually like confirmed that was the plan until the pandemic happened.
I don't doubt that Darren Young isn't telling the truth, but I think there is going to be there might be some gray area thrown in there. I don't doubt that it's not true, but I bet you would have had maybe 3 or 4 Nexus guys instead of all 8 or all 9. I mean, you definitely would not have gotten Ryback. I don't care if you're Vince McMahon. I don't care if you're Triple H. I don't care how much money you would have tried to throw at him, unless, Ryback would have said, okay, you can bring me in, but I want to be back on full time. Like, you have to bring me back on as a talent or as a behind the scenes guy or whatever, but you need to bring me back as a full time employee. And I don't think WWE would have done that. So I think that's out.
I don't think he wants to be there though.
I don't think he does either, but at the same time, I mean,
that guy has nonstop trashed how they treat their employees.
No, I agree. I mean, you got to think though, in some way, shape, or form, money talks despite what's going on, what's not going on, et cetera, et cetera. You've also got PJ Black, who was Justin Gabriel. Ring of Honor, I would be surprised if they would have let him be on WWE TV. Now, I know that they've kind of had working agreements in the past and things like that, but for a talent like the PJ Black to be featured on a WrestleMania, I'd be surprised if Ring of Honor allowed that, unless WWE threw a bunch of money at Ring of Honor that they probably wouldn't agree to. So there's that. Who else we got? Michael Tarver. I don't even know what's going on with him.
He's actually a Christian rapper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, but yeah, he does Christian hip hop.
So he might have been a maybe. Curtis Axel they wouldn't have had a problem with because he was there. Heath Slater was still there. Wade Barrett would have been probably out of the question because you would have had a similar scenario with him as PJ Black. WWE would have had to work something out with NWA. Probably not going to happen. Who else am I missing here?
So the other thing that comes to my mind is that if they said the original Nexus, you could make the argument that CM Punk could also be like the leader of that as well. And they've made the talks about him making his return.
I don't think that would have been his return, though.
Me neither. I'm just saying that that one almost seems more likely to me than a Wade Barrett or a PJ Black coming
100%
back,
agree.
because at least he has the freedom to sign without having to worry about my contracts that I have. And so, but they had a handful of guys, right? Like they had Daniel Bryan, they had David Otunga on their paid roster. I mean, he's not necessarily a wrestler. Curtis Axel, Heath Slater, and Darren Young probably, it sounds like he would have been in, and maybe Michael Tarver. I like the point that you made that they should have probably been involved in the Firefly Funhouse, and maybe they were supposed to be in the spot that the NWO part kind of came in. Who knows? The way I read it, though, it sounded like they were meant to have a prominent role back on TV, so it made it sound like they were going to interrupt a match, whether it was a title match, whether it was one of those like the Seth Rollins Kevin Owens match. I don't know what match that would have been, but he made it sound like they had huge plans for them, which you would almost have to, right? Like if you're going to pay all those guys to come do an appearance, you wouldn't want it to be a one-off appearance. I feel like if you're bringing those guys in, you're bringing them in for a storyline. And so it just was an interesting thing because I hadn't heard anything about them. I didn't even think that was on the radar. And then to see that story pop up and Darren Young be the one that was kind of confirming it.
And I give credence to Darren Young. I mean, he'd always been a good employee for WWE. He'd always do a lot of media appearances. So again, I'm not saying what he.
I don't think he's lying. Like I just feel like there's probably more to it than what we've been given.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm interested though. Like, what was the storyline?
It's one of those things we'll probably never
still
know.
on the table. You know, is it something that when we get crowds back, because it was shot down when the pandemic hit, as if they wanted that crowd pop, as if it was gonna get it. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if it would get it. The Nexus thing was kind of hated on when it happened. So I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah. Guys, I think we've hit the halfway point in our show, and you know what that means.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Get some good old Lord Alfred Hayes. So you guys can check out the Going Broadway podcast. We have live shows every week, every Monday and Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central on Facebook and YouTube. If you want to be entered into our future giveaways, it's running across the bottom of your screen now. Please like our Facebook page. It is facebook.com/goingbroadwaypodcast. Please also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. The handle for both Twitter and Instagram is @goingbrdwypod. Excuse me. Do not include the exclamation point on that handle. I forgot to edit that earlier. So Twitter and Instagram @goingbrdwypod. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is goingbroadwaypodcast.com/YouTube. If you do all 4 of those, you will have 4 entries into our next big belt giveaway. We're going to be giving away. How many belts are we giving away, Cole?
Not 1, not 2, but 3 belts to 1 person.
That was pretty good. We're gonna put Cole to work doing some more voiceover work. But no, seriously, we're gonna be giving away 3 belts to 1 lucky winner. As I've said before, any and all of our giveaways, I cover the shipping for anyone that lives within the lower 48 states. If you live in Alaska, if you live in Hawaii, or otherwise internationally, you would have to be covering the shipping above and beyond what I would cover. So it's like $20 to $25, depending on what we ship out. Whether it's belts, we often do t-shirt giveaways, things like that. So that's pretty much it, guys. And I've said that we are going to be doing a giveaway at some point during the show. That is still going to happen. But we're going to do an Ask the Hosts segment first. So if you guys would start getting your questions into Cole and myself, we'll do some Ask the Hosts for about. I'll tell you what, guys. I'll play spoiler. We'll do an Ask the Host segment for about 20 minutes or so, and then shortly after, what would that put it at? About 11:10 Eastern Time, 10:10 Central Time, we will do our mystery giveaway drawing. So, but yeah, for the time being, please get your questions in for our Ask the Host segment, and we'll answer your questions. Please keep them, again, free of any profanity, vulgar language. Let's keep the questions clean, if you would, please.
There was a question really early on in the show from Michael, who's one of our listeners that's frequently on. He asked about the Young Bucks being the center of the AEW tag team. What are our thoughts on that? Kind of was asking, should it be somebody else? With the Revival coming in, Revolt, FTR, whatever you want to call them. But he kind of had a question. I'd have to scroll all the way to the top. But it was along those lines of our thoughts on the Young Bucks still being booked as the center of the tag team division of AEW. And I can, if you want to go for, I don't.
No, you can. I don't mind.
I don't feel like they're booked as the center of the AEW tag team division.
I don't either.
I think they're booked on on the card high because they are a draw, but they haven't won the tag belts. They haven't really had a tag team title opportunity to even try to win the tag belts. I think once.
Yeah, they've had the one shot at the tag belts at Revolution, and that was it.
That was late, in my opinion. So I don't know if I would even say that they've really been booked as the center. I think they are a centerpiece because they're probably the best tag team in the world right now.
I was going to say, for good reason. I mean, their only tag title shot was a 6-star match. Now, granted, I'm not a Dave Meltzer apologist or supporter or whatever, but I'm just saying, anytime I mention a X amount of star match, Dave Meltzer's the one that gives those ratings, so that's just what I'm classifying it as. But nonetheless, continue.
So I don't know. I don't think I don't think they're booked in a way that you could say they're the center of their tag team division. I would almost say that there's other tag teams that are kind of carrying the tag team division. I mean, Best Friends has probably had more tag matches than anybody on the show. So I think what's their name? Jurassic Express has had a ton of tag matches. For me to say that you are the centerpiece or you're booked as that, you are like the New Day. You are constantly in the title picture. You are constantly in the running. You are constantly a threat. And when you have a tag team that's only had one shot at the belt and everything else has been feuds with more of like a faction feud than it is a tag team feud, I just don't think you've been booked the same way. And Michael just said FTR comes in, and to me, it would make more sense for a Kenny Page instead of the Bucks, which you may see happen. So Alex and I actually talked about this last show when we talked about FTR, is that this is a storyline that's probably going to get drug out for a while, because that's what AEW does. AEW doesn't just capitalize on the big story right off the bat, because I think the Young Bucks and Revival are going to have their match at a big pay-per-view. That is not a AEW Dynamite episode match. And we even talked about Fyter Fest, and we don't really feel like Fyter Fest is the location for that. So we feel like obviously there's a Best Friends Hangman Page match that has to happen, or Hangman Page and Omega match that has to happen at some point, because Best Friends are in line. You got Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc, who have their title shot this Wednesday night. So there's a few other storylines with Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page to go, but I don't know. I feel like the match that we've all been waiting to see is that Young Bucks FTR match, and that'll probably happen at, I think we said All Out, what was kind of our thoughts. So you're probably going to see a lot of teases of them kind of going back and forth, the kind of half respect gimmick thing going on as they all kind of build momentum towards that match. I think you're going to see a Butcher and the Blade feud with the Young Bucks here for a little bit, probably the next month, while FTR kind of keeps just kind of making their presence known as they fight probably jobber tag teams or lower card tag teams to get a little bit of steam going.
Yeah, and someone said Bucks versus FTR at Double or Nothing 2021. I don't think so. I mean, I think they have plenty of time to make it happen at All Out. I think you're going to get FTR and Butcher and Blade at Fyter Fest, just based on what we saw last week. Now, FTR is going to be doing a sit-down with Tony Schiavone on this week's Dynamite, so we'll see.
It's a great question, though, Michael, and I'll let Alex give his thoughts on it. But
my thoughts on it are pretty much what you said. I don't think the Young Bucks are they've made themselves an attraction, but I don't think they're the centerpiece of the tag division. I don't think necessarily, and this is credit to AEW, that they don't have a centerpiece of their tag division, but they just have an array of a tag division. And in my opinion, they have the best tag division of any pro wrestling company that's out there. I'm including WWE. I'm including New Japan. I'm including Ring of Honor. Any mainstream wrestling company, I think they have the best tag division. And in my opinion, it's not even close. I mean, Cole just ran down a lot of their tag teams. He didn't even mention some of them. Private Party. You've got they kind of just threw these guys together, but Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc are a pretty good tag team. I mean, their kind of ring dynamic is actually quite surprisingly good. And I don't know what their histories are, if they've ever worked in tag teams together or with other people, but it's surprisingly good. Now, you've got Private Party, you've got Angelico and Jack Evans, you've got, we mentioned Butcher and the Blade, we've mentioned Jurassic Express. You didn't even mention Scorpio Sky and Kazarian. I mean, SCU for inaugural AEW tag champions. So yeah, I don't think that the Young Bucks are the centerpiece. I don't think necessarily any tag team is a centerpiece. I think that they've done what they should have done with the tag division. I kind of wish, and I won't be long-winded with this part. I wish that And I like Kenny Omega, don't get me wrong. He's in charge of the women's division. I wish their women's division would be better than it is. I wish they would do with the women's division what they've been doing with the tag division and make it seem like it's more exciting to watch, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my short answer, I guess.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I know.
So
We're just gonna have to. Let's see. I'll pick we'll kind of go back and forth. I'll pick the next one.
I can't even scroll all the way up to the top
I
of
know.
where the questions are.
You guys are awesome. We appreciate the questions. Let's see. I'm just trying to pick one. Yeah, some of these guys, they've even mentioned Inner Circle. You totally forgot Santana and Ortiz. Wow, I'm super disappointed in myself that I didn't even mention them. All right, I'm just gonna scroll and pick one. Let's see. Who do you think, KJ Simpson asks, who do you think they'll bring in for the TNT Invitational? So this is an interesting development. So Cody did a Q&A on his Twitter over the weekend, and somebody that's actually a supporter of this page, someone that's followed us across all of our platforms, he asked Cody a question and got it answered. So the question was, will the TNT Invitational be open to any non-AEW talent? And Cody he said his short and sweet answer was yes. Now, I don't know if that's just playing up a storyline or if that's, just kind of a kayfabe, if you will, answer. But it's interesting. Now, I'll keep my answer short and sweet because, they could bring in a lot of talent from other organizations. I would be all for them doing that, especially if it means we're going to have a collaboration or a working partnership between AEW and other organizations. New Japan, Ring of Honor. There's just so many directions they could go with that. So if I'm looking at it from just strictly AEW talent, I see it being, Jungle Boy's at this upcoming Wednesday. I would have thrown him in that, even if he didn't win the Battle Royal this past week. Inevitably, I think MJF's going to win the belt at some point. So I don't know if he'll be in this Invitational. I think that'll be like a pay-per-view match. I'd be surprised if Cody loses the belt on a Dynamite episode. But you can throw pretty much anybody on TNT, anybody on AEW's roster that is kind of in that mid-card range. And we talked about this on Monday's show. They have a lot of talent on their roster right now that I would look at being in kind of that mid-card range. Throw Colt Cabana into that. You could throw, Luchasaurus into that. Christopher Daniels, really any of SCU. Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, Sammy Guevara, Jake Hager. There's just so many guys that you could say. Too many guys to mention. Now if I'm going outside of AEW, I think that would be like a Brian Pillman Jr., PJ Black maybe. We haven't seen Jeff Cobb for a while. That might be something they bring him back for. Back to AEW, Dustin Rhodes could easily be thrown back into that. I'm trying to think of New Japan guys that might make that trek over.
Well, there was a rumor of the Will Ospreay being in what was it, during the pay-per-view.
Yeah, so allegedly Will Ospreay was spotted in Jacksonville the night of the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. I don't know, A, if that was true, and B, if it was true, if it was just coincidence, but it was something I read, and obviously we didn't see him. But Will Ospreay is friends with Chris Jericho, and as I'm sure other people on AEW roster. So, nonetheless, that's kind of my answer.
I think you nailed it on the head. There's just a lot of guys, which is great. That's why I'm glad they brought a mid-card title in, because there's a lot of guys who deserve that kind of platform. So hopefully they get a lot of guys on the show and or on that platform and get people going. There's a couple more great questions. Someone asked who our top 5 tag teams are. On the spot, that's a hard one to pick for me. I think for me the Dudley Boys are up there.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm a Dudley Boys fan.
They might be outside of my top 5, but continue.
I like Dudley Boys, the Hardys. I like the Hardys. Harlem Heat. Road Warriors. Oh man, that's tough.
Sorry, real quick. Lynn says Marty Scurll for the TNT title. That'd be awesome. I'd love that.
That'd be great, but I'd rather see him in the main card picture.
I would too, but I mean, anyway.
Man, that's 4. There's so many. I don't know. That's a hard one to answer.
So let me throw mine in real quick, and this is in no particular order because on any given day I could flip flop the order. Let's say Road Warriors. I'll say Steiner Brothers.
Steiner Brothers.
I'll throw in Arn and Tully. I mean, I know that they were singles wrestlers, that they were a tag team. I mean, they held the tag titles, but I'm just such an old school fan that, I mean, Arn and Tully just worked. I mean, it just worked. That's the best way that I can describe it. Of all time, I'm going to get a lot of heat from you guys that are watching probably for saying this, but I'm putting Young Bucks in there. I mean, for what they've done for the business as a whole, for the talent that they have. A lot of people don't like them. They think they're just spot monkeys, but if you're a spot monkey, quote unquote, you still have to have a form of athleticism to pull off what they do. So let's see, Young Bucks, Road Warriors, and this is in no particular order. Young Bucks, Steiner Brothers, Road Warriors, Arn and Tully, and oh man, why is it the 5th one that's always hard? There's probably one out there. It's like just a duh kind of answer.
When you said Steiner Bros, I was like, why didn't I even think of them? Like,
yeah,
there's so many. Like, I even think there's an argument for the New Day with how many title runs they've had, how consistent they've stayed in that role.
Yeah,
and I like them a lot as well.
I'd probably give my 5th vote to the Hart Foundation.
Hart Foundation's a good one.
I mean, the reason I was
Demolition. Demolitions was good too. Rock and Roll Express,
Midnight Express. I mean, there's a ton of tag teams you can throw in there. We got a lot of answers saying Mulkey Brothers. I love it.
Someone said I'm interested in one of these because somebody said, where was it at?
Taka and Funaki. I love it.
Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, Edge and Christian, Jurassic Express, and the Mulkey Bros.
If you guys aren't familiar with the Mulkey Brothers, they are what I'll call a jobber tag team, but probably the best jobber workers out there. I mean, they take some sick
Let's just
bumps.
throw in Jesse and Festus, the Domino and Deuce, and the Spirit Squad while we're at it.
Jeez. We got some people saying
Vicious and Delicious.
Motor City Machine Guns.
Motor City Machine Guns. I like that one.
Natural Disasters. David Burris says Zack Sabre Jr. for the TNT title. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Twin Towers. I love
the
it.
Rock and Sock Connection.
Oh man, they were around for a couple cups of coffee, but that was about it. British Bulldogs. Yeah, that's a good one. Killer Bees. Headbangers.
The Bushwhackers.
There you go.
I like the Bushwhackers.
Someone
said no Jesse and Festus. I just said Jesse and Festus.
Harlem Heat.
Harlem Heat's got to be up there for me.
All right, let's.
Someone asked if when we're getting.
Hey, hold on. You did the last question.
Oh, my bad.
We'll do 5 questions. I'll do 2. You do 3. So I'll get the next one, then you get one more.
I don't know if I want to waste my question on that one. Whoa.
Well, it seemed good enough to.
Let me go look and make sure there's not a better question.
Oh man. Okay. Let's see. Just trying to pick out a question here, guys. Okay. I'll go with this question. This might be a multi-part answer. This is almost like one of those essay questions that you get on a test.
You got 500 words.
Yeah. So with Vince having so many legal issues going on due to his recent decisions, do you feel he will turn over the reins to someone else soon or be overthrown even? So I don't think he'll turn over the reins to anybody. I think it's his company until, unfortunately, he passes away. However long that might be, whether it's 5 years from now, 25 years from now, who knows? Do I think he'll be overthrown? No. I don't look at it in that way. I do think that inevitably, if it gets to the point where, WWE has a board of directors, that they can have a say so in the direction of WWE as far as their leadership and things like that. Inevitably, though, I think that and again, I'm keeping this answer short because there's a lot of variables and other logistical things, but I think it's Vince's company until he passes away. And I'm not trying to be morbid. I just, I think Vince, it's Vince's company, it's his baby, and it's his until he dies. That's just short and sweet.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where until he's at a place, I don't know if it's until he dies, but I definitely think it's still a place until he cannot function.
Oh yeah, I mean, if health-wise he
in a healthy manner where he can't handle that workload.
Right.
I do think they have the right people in place for the company to progress. A lot of people love Triple H. That guy is not a softie. He is all about making the business as great as it can be, which means doing what's actually best for business. And I think we've seen what he's capable of with having those safeguards, with having that kind of lasso around him that kind of holds him back from being completely unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've seen that Triple H has what it takes to take that company to the next level. With Stephanie at his side, I think a lot of people have talked about how great Stephanie is, that she's grown a lot in the business. And when she first came in, she was a little annoying to work with, but I think she's grown a lot. And I think between her and Triple H, I think those two have a great vision for where the company needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we start to see that transition keep taking place. I think we've seen it. It's a slow one, but I think we're starting to see more and more of that happening, which is exciting for wrestling fans.
Agreed. And to Cole's point, if Vince becomes, and I'm not trying to be morbid in any way, but if he deals with I don't think he deals with this now, but health issues happen, and if he deals with anything that's like dementia or something like that. Again, I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm not trying to make a joke about it by any means, because I know people, rip on Vince for WWE and creative and things like that. But if that inevitably becomes a real life issue, yeah, I expect someone else to, take the reins of WWE. But we had some people say that they think he would sell it. I mean, who knows if the price is right? I don't know. There's a lot of directions it could go, and again, that's kind of what I mentioned. There's some other logistical and variables involved, so who knows. So I'll tell you what, we'll do two more questions. So you take one, I'll take the last, and then we'll do our mystery giveaway, if you will.
Well, someone asked this. This is an Alex only question, so I'm not going to use it as my question because this should be a quick one for you.
Okay.
Someone just asked, when is there going to be a Going Broadway podcast championship belt? And I will let you answer that real quick.
It's in the works.
Ooh, everybody should have made that noise at home.
And it's not being given away to anybody. That's going to be mine and mine only.
Until I pin him for it. No, I'm just kidding.
It does not have 24/7 rules either.
So the question that I like was, who has the best women's division right now? And
that's a good one.
And I'm really passionate about this topic. Alex knows my answer, so I'm actually going to break this down beyond.
This is going to be
saying WWE or AEW, or I'm talking show.
This is going to be an essay answer. So I'm going to.
I am saying as a show, and it's really, really tough because until maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I would have said it was an easy one for me. But given the current climate, it's tough because I want to say NXT. I think NXT has a huge, solid women's division. because you got Io Shirai there. I mean, Charlotte Flair, you have to count her as part of the roster. She's the champion right now. So Charlotte Flair.
Even if you don't, I mean, I still think
Charlotte Flair's there. Mia Yim is solid. Dakota Kai, Candice LeRae. Even some of the ones who are kind of up and coming. Tegan Knox is really good. So they have a lot that I just feel like they don't have. They haven't had the chance to necessarily shine. The other one, the one that was a close runner-up for me was Raw, and that's just because they have Asuka. By definition, they have Becky Lynch. She's not retired, but they have Charlotte Flair technically on Raw's roster as well, and then you have some of the other names like Bianca Belair that haven't really had much TV time yet. Ruby Riott, not Alexa. Well, I guess technically they're on all rosters, Alexa Bliss and them, but they're technically SmackDown. So, but for me, it's NXT. A lot of people say AEW, and I don't know why, and I'll expand on that just a little bit. They don't have but more than maybe one or two girls like that are solid, ready to go girls. Like, I'm not saying I don't like Chris Statlander, but I'm not sold on Chris Statlander yet. Like, I haven't seen a promo yet by Chris Statlander that was just like, okay, yeah, you got it all. Like to me, they have Britt Baker, which is great. And then I like Sheeta, but Sheeta is really talented in the ring, but I don't know if she's the whole package. I don't know if she has everything to be what we would consider a complete wrestler. I don't think Nyla Rose is that. I don't think we haven't even really seen Allie in the ring, which is kind of funny because she was so good on the mic in Impact. So there's a lot that I like Big Swole, but we haven't seen Big Swole be everything that she could be yet. So I think they have talent. I think they have potential to have a good women's division. I wouldn't mind seeing a few other women jump ship to AEW that have a little bit bigger name value to help build that women's division. If they never let Ember Moon wrestle again in WWE, I would love to see her in AEW. I think she has a lot of potential, but I think they definitely need that next woman to kind of take them to the next level, because I think Britt Baker is the number one person in that division.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with everything you said. So for me, NXT hands down has the best women's division, even if you didn't have Charlotte Flair on the roster.
I didn't even say that the number one woman on the NXT.
Yeah,
Rhea Ripley.
Exactly. I mean, let's do this. Let's take Charlotte Flair. Let's just say she's on Raw, just hypothetically.
Okay.
In that situation, I would probably put NXT and Raw neck and neck, but if you made me pick one, I would still pick NXT. But the fact that she's, on the NXT roster, I think it's NXT across the board. I don't think it's even close. I mean, again, as far as your AEW comments on their division, I think you've got Britt Baker. I think you've got Sheeta. I think both of those are reliable in-ring talent. I mean, as far as mic work, I mean, Sheeta, I think she has limited English. I know she's been on Being the Elite before, but I don't remember if she speaks a lot of English. But nonetheless, I think those are two that you can rely on in the ring, that you're going to have solid matches, that you're not going to have botches, things like that. But besides that, there's not really anybody else. I mean, any other women on that roster, we've either not seen enough or we have seen them, but I'll just be honest, there are botches, and there are botches just about like every other match. I mean, I like Chris Statlander, but the match with her and Nyla Rose at Revolution, again, I was there while I watched it live, and it was by far the worst match on the card.
Then followed that with the Penelope. And now maybe the Britt Baker match would have been better, but the Penelope Ford match that we got at this last pay-per-view was lackluster. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely didn't have that that was phenomenal kind of draw with Chris Statlander.
Right. So I agree. That's my answer as well.
Andrew brings up, if you watch Impact, you know that they actually have a lot of decent women wrestler in Impact right now. I just don't think that they've had the time to shine. so you don't get to see everything that they can do. I've always made an argument. I would love to see Kiera Hogan in a different promotion. Someone commented with Tessa as a question mark. I'm assuming that means that could she be the woman that helps put the AEW women's roster on the map or help? Maybe. I don't know if I think she alone could do it, because I'm not sold on Tessa. I think she got booked very, very well in Impact, but I don't think she was booked according to her ability. Mm-hmm. And I think Tessa is great. I think if she was to go and work with some more experienced people, she probably would even get better. But I don't know. Maybe I would have to see it.
I agree. I'm not sold on Tessa Blanchard either. I mean, I think if
I like her, but I just don't know if she's like the face. I don't know if AEW is a way bigger promotion than Impact.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if you can make her the face of it for me. So someone said I would love to see R-Truth win the Going Broadway podcast title.
He has an opportunity. He has an open invite if he ever wants to come on our show. All right, let's do one more question, and then at 11:20 Eastern, 10:20 Central, we will do our giveaway, our mystery giveaway, if you will. Before I pick the next question, what I need you guys to do, if you're watching us live right now, I just need you to reply on this chat thread with the word "here." That's all I need you to do. If you do that, that automatically will put you into this mystery giveaway. Again, this is just for our live viewers right now. It's a mystery giveaway. Only the winner will know what we're giving away. I just need you to reply with the word "here," and you're automatically entered into this randomizer giveaway that we'll do in here in about 5 minutes. So, this was a bad idea. I should have picked my question first, because
I was gonna say,
now
did you pick your question? Because you're not getting that
I
question.
didn't
Hopefully
pick
you
it.
read a few.
I did read a few. I just need to go back to the one that I was going to tackle. Okay, this is the one I was going to tackle, and this was because there was a special that aired on the network. I think it was last night or the night before on Sting. Just some previously unaired footage. Leo Troyer asks, favorite old school Sting match? To me, it's going to be his match with Ric Flair at the first Clash of Champions, because that's the match that that really put Sting on the map. He's had good matches over the years. A lot of it has been due to fan interaction and fans getting into the match. If you go back and watch his match with DDP on Nitro from, I want to say it's 99, it was the match that I think it started off the night. Sting wins the WCW title over DDP. Fans were it was a hot crowd. They were into it. And then Sting lost it later in the night in a fatal four-way match, I think. DDP won the title back. So that'd be my favorite Sting match of all time. Clash of Champions, the very first one, with some honorable mentions. Again, the DDP match he had. Crowd was really into it. It's a fun watch. You can pull it up on the network, I think. You can pull it up on YouTube. I'm just trying to think of some others. I mean, the War Games match from 1992. Sting was in that. That was a fun match. War Games 91 was a fun match. If you're just looking at other singles or tag matches, I'm just trying to think. He had a lot of good matches on the Starrcade 89 card. I think that was the one where they had the round robin tournament. He went up against Flair and Luger, Great Muta. I think I've got the card right. Yeah, Adam says 94 Sting and Rude for the international title. That was a good one as well. Andrew says Sting versus Vader, Great American Bash 92. That was a good match. How about you? Do you have any Sting matches you want to mention?
I was trying to think. What do you consider old school Sting? Because the only original old school Sting match that I think I remember watching, going back and watching, because I wasn't old enough really to watch at that time, would have been the Sting Flair match. But I loved a lot of what Sting did in Impact. And so it just depends on how old school you mean with Sting, because he's had such a long career. I mean, his stuff in Impact was over 10 years ago. So It just depends on how old school you get. But the only one that I'm familiar with, like if you're going like way back, would be the Sting Flair match, and I thought it was great. But I loved I loved the main event Mafia stuff that Sting did in Impact, and his little like fake Joker gimmick that he did in Impact. So a lot of great storylines with him there too. So yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, it's giveaway time. Let's do this. So, again, if you are on the chat thread, you had until 10:20 to reply with the word here. And I've got everybody that replied to my request put into this little, what do I want to call it? It's kind of like this little feature where I can, what is the word I'm trying to think of?
Application.
Well, yeah, it's basically an application that I use that it kind of runs like a matrix on anybody that, guys, if you're applying now with the word here, you're not going to be entered. It's too late. I cut it off at 10:20, so I apologize, guys, if you're just now replying with the word here and you didn't earlier. So the last one I had that replied with the word here, the last one I've got is Dalton Moss on YouTube. He's the last one I've got on here. Anyone after that, I apologize, guys. It's too late. So, all right, guys, let's run this randomizer. Again, only the winner will know what is being given away today. I will encourage them to post it across all of our social media pages. If you live internationally or Alaska or Hawaii, you're going to have to cover the shipping. I'll work that out with the winner. If it comes to that, if for whatever reason the winner declines the winnings, I'll call it, we'll do this drawing again maybe on Thursday's show. It is also up to the winner to basically winners have to message me to claim their winnings going forward. I will no longer be contacting the winners. Same thing applies here. All right, guys. Let's run this. We've got, I'll bring this down here so you can hear me clicking, hopefully. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, and I forgot to mention we're doing all of our giveaways with 10 clicks. So the next click wins. Number 10 is William Lorenzana is our winner for today's giveaway. So I will have William contact me. William, if you're watching, you need to contact me if you're going to claim your winnings. Again, William Lorenzana, you are our winner. And he just replied as yay. So, William, I'll have you contact me to claim your winnings. I'll let you know when you contact me what you've won. So, congrats to William. And we have done our drawing for today. We'll do more drawings like this in the future. Some of them will be announced. Some of them will be unannounced. But it'll be just for our live viewers because we appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out with us. That being said, guys, I think we're going to call it a day. We're going to call it a show. It was a little shorter than normal, but and I'll answer someone's question from earlier. They said that they asked, how do we get the name Going Broadway? And that's an old school term for if a match went an hour back in the day. It was termed they went Broadway. If they went an hour-long match. So that's how we got that term, and we always wanted to make sure that each of our shows were at least an hour. And, we've done that today. So, again, congrats to William. I'll let him contact me. Cole, any final thoughts?
No, sir. I think we had a great show. Thanks for all your guys' questions and joining us today. And
yeah, and we'll regularly do these Ask the Host shows. We'll probably do these like once a month. More than likely, it'll always be on a Monday because our Thursday shows are always jam-packed. But Thursday, we'll recap NXT and AEW Dynamite. We might talk about Raw that airs tonight.
You never know.
We've got a Don't we have a pay-per-view coming up?
Backlash would be
that's in a couple weeks. Don't we have NXT in your house coming up?
NXT in your house. I think this next weekend.
I think it's this upcoming.
This weekend. We might have to do some predictions.
We'll have to do some predictions. Yeah, it is this upcoming Sunday.
So. Ooh, so come Thursday for predictions.
Right now we've only got 5 matches on the card, which I mean I don't expect there to be anything much added. They
usually do about 5 or 6.
Yeah, they might add an NXT tag title match, but I mean, I don't expect there to be any more than 6. Sean, to answer your question, yes, you were in the drawing.
Yeah, I commented on there.
Okay,
I let him know.
But guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us. Like I said, we are live every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Please check out our ticker across the bottom of your screen. If you like our Facebook page, if you follow us on Twitter and Instagram, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, that is how you're entered into any and all future giveaways. So, tell you what, I'll answer one more question just because I can. David asks, have you ever thought of doing a giveaway based on who can correctly get all the winners right on a pay-per-view? I have thought about that. There are some logistical things that are involved in that. I mean, we've got, between all of our social media platforms, we've got like over 5,000 likes/follows/subscribers, and so that would be a lot of kind of sorting through messages, but we'll do something like that in the future. We might do like we might post something on our social media page that says, hey, if you claim, one spot of 100, then you have the opportunity to, pick winners for the next pay-per-view. And then from those 100 winners, we'll see who got the most right. We might do something like that.
There'll be a ladder match to enter that, so you'll just have to win that.
There will be no wrestling matches, at least that I'm involved with on this show. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with us. For Cole, for myself, Alex, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central.
And so, goodbye. And good night. Bye.
This podcast was a presentation of LightUpMedia.fm.